Nobody talks about this. Some men become dangerous because they are desperate. Others become dangerous because they taste power and never want to let it go. But Damian World Hardy was different. He wasn't just feared because he had money, muscle, or influence. He was feared because nobody truly knew what was going on inside his mind. Before we get into this story, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. It helps the channel grow and pushes these stories deeper into the algorithm so more people can find them. Someone once asked me how I viewed Damian World Hardy, and my answer was simple. Imagine Kanye West, but as a gangster. That might sound strange at first, but think about it. Success can inflate a person's ego. Fame can make someone believe they're untouchable. But even without success, arrogance can grow when someone is constantly feared, respected, or obeyed. Over time, that kind of treatment can push a person so high into their own world that they become blind to reality. That's what many people believe happened to World. But here's the question that still divides people to this day. Was Damian Hardy truly insane? Or was insanity just another weapon he used to survive? That question becomes even more complicated when you look at how he built his empire. World began his rise through violence. He muscled his way into Lafayette Gardens, entering territory where crews were already established. He didn't politely ask for power. He took it, and he was good at it. He convinced men from rival sides to join him. He built loyalty through fear and strength. His manpower grew, and soon, opposing him became dangerous. World operated with a simple mentality: get down or lay down. If you joined him, you gained protection. If you refused, you became a problem. One of the most revealing things about World was this: he did not handle rejection well. Not at all. Even later in life, when he was already powerful, that trait remained. At one point, he approached a man running a medical clinic with a proposal to participate in insurance fraud. The man refused. For most people, rejection is annoying. For World, rejection felt like disrespect, and disrespect had consequences. The clinic owner pushed back, showing confidence of his own. But Hardy wasn't used to civilians challenging him. He had the man followed and shot. That moment reveals something terrifying about his mindset. Street tactics might work in the streets, but when you start applying that same mindset to ordinary civilians, something changes. People stop seeing you as a hustler or gangster and start seeing you as something worse, a predator. World gave people the impression that he cared about only one person, himself. When he didn't get his way, he reportedly asked people, "Do you know who I am?" That question says a lot. It shows entitlement. Ego, a deep need for control. As his reputation grew, so did the fear around his name. He had already put in work. Men knew he was violent. They knew he would go further than most people were willing to go. Plenty of people didn't want war with him, not because they were weak, but because they understood the cost. War with World meant bodies. It meant nonstop retaliation. It meant always watching your back. Because if you wanted to oppose him, you had to be ready 24 hours a day. No breaks, no peace, no off switch. As World became stronger, violence became the foundation of his leadership. During one war, he suffered multiple gunshot wounds. In one incident, people thought he was dead, but he survived. And when he recovered, the myth around him grew even bigger. That's when something shifted. Men would rather stand beside him than against him. Fear turned into loyalty. Respect turned into obedience. As leader of the notorious CNB crew, World controlled Lafayette Gardens with an iron fist. His operation stretched through multiple units, across multiple floors. Residents saw the activity every day. Drug dealing became normal. Violence became normal. Even some residents became part of the machine. But here was his biggest flaw. He lived by the gun and had no idea when to stop using it. That kind of mindset eventually becomes self-destructive. Power requires discipline. World had power. But discipline? That was another story. Things escalated when there was an attempted hit on a narcotics officer. That shook people. Even members of his own crew started questioning him. A leader is supposed to think strategically. A leader is supposed to protect the operation. But World often led from the front straight into the fire. That kind of leadership inspires fear but it also burns everyone around you. In 1992, when he went down on charges, some people almost felt relief. At least the chaos might slow down. But even prison didn't stop him. His code was simple: no witnesses. And if someone testified, automatic target. That reputation alone kept many people silent. Even behind bars, his influence remained. The neighborhood still felt his presence. He was still calling shots. Then tragedy struck. His brother was killed. And whatever restraint he had left seemed to disappear. World allegedly ordered hits from jail and then calmly ate a turkey sandwich as if nothing happened. That detail chills people because it suggests emotional detachment. No remorse, no hesitation, just violence as routine. Retaliation came fast after his brother's death, and years later, when World was released, the violence returned. Shootings became more frequent. Bodies dropped in the same neighborhoods, sometimes in the same buildings. For World, time didn't heal anything. He carried grudges like fresh wounds. If you crossed him 10 years ago, he could still come for you like it happened yesterday. That's part of what made him so dangerous. There was no expiration date on revenge. Then came another twist in his life: music industry connections. World wanted bigger money. Street money wasn't enough anymore. He wanted industry money. That eventually placed him around major figures, including Lil' Kim and 50 Cent. This is where stories get complicated. There has always been confusion around the names, affiliations, and events involving Hardy, Tyson, Kim, and 50. Some stories were exaggerated. Some details were intentionally confusing. Some believe certain narratives were pushed to mislead law enforcement. But one thing remained consistent: World didn't care who you were. Street guy, celebrity, rapper, didn't matter. He feared no one. And if he gave an order, people followed, because refusing him could make you the next target. His relationship with Lil' Kim is another window into his mind. Their history went back years. At first, there was loyalty and chemistry, but love mixed with obsession can become dangerous. World reportedly fell in love with the image of loyalty, the idea of having a ride-or-die woman who represented him. That's important. He didn't just want love, he wanted control. If he publicly claimed someone as his, then in his mind, everything that person did reflected on him. Where she went, who she spoke to, how she moved, everything. And when reality failed to match his expectations, resentment grew. Then, violence entered the relationship. That tells you something disturbing about his psychology. He viewed people less as independent individuals and more as extensions of his will. If they obeyed, things were fine. If they resisted, punishment followed. Then came the legal twist that made the public ask the biggest question of all. World pleaded insanity. Insanity defenses aren't easy to win. You need evidence, medical history, psychological evaluations, behavior patterns. And Hardy had a schizophrenia diagnosis. His attorneys used that diagnosis to delay trials and challenge charges. But many people remained skeptical because when you listen to him speak publicly, especially in interviews, he sounded sharp, very sharp, articulate, focused, aware. In fact, some thought he seemed smarter than average. So people asked, was he really mentally ill or performing mental illness? That's where the story becomes almost unbelievable. At one point, Hardy traveled to the Middle East for several months, trying to recruit followers and spread his ideology. He reportedly went to Jordan and attempted to reach the royal palace to urge the king of Jordan to step down. Think about that. A Brooklyn kingpin trying to confront royalty, as if he belonged in those circles. He also traveled to Morocco and was arrested after attempting to visit the king there. He was later arrested again in Jordan for speaking against the monarchy. Now ask yourself, what kind of mind thinks this is a good idea? Is that delusion, grandiosity, mental illness, or pure ego taken to its extreme? Maybe all three, because here's the twist nobody talks about. The same arrogance that helped him conquer the streets may have been the same arrogance that destroyed him. The qualities that made him powerful also made him reckless. He believed he could intimidate anyone, street rivals, police, government, even kings. That's not ordinary confidence. That's something much darker. Even while fighting legal battles, Hardy resisted psychiatric evaluations and often refused medication. Then came his behavior behind bars. And this is where the insanity argument gets stronger. He reportedly gave prison staff constant problems. He attacked correctional officers, refused orders, barricaded himself in his cell, armed himself with a sock filled with batteries. He threw unknown liquid substances at staff. One incident reportedly caused severe burning in an officer's eye. There were also reports of him attacking enemies with makeshift weapons, making threats, and throwing feces. That behavior shocked even hardened prison personnel. Eventually, after a 4-week jury trial, Damian Hardy was convicted on 23 charges: racketeering, murder, firearms offenses, drug distribution. The sentence? Life plus 85 years. Think about that. Life plus another 85 years. In other words, even after death, the sentence feels symbolic. A statement. The system wanted to ensure one thing: he was never coming back. World also held extremely intense religious beliefs. He strongly identified with Islam and reportedly demanded respect for those beliefs. But even religion didn't soften him. If challenged, violence still remained close beneath the surface. That contradiction fascinates people. How can someone speak of faith while embracing destruction? How can someone be disciplined in belief yet chaotic in behavior? That contradiction may be the clearest window into Damian Hardy's mind. He was both strategic and reckless, brilliant and self-destructive, calculated and impulsive, loyal and deeply controlling. That's why his story still sparks debate. Was he evil, mentally ill, a victim of the environment, a master manipulator, or all of the above? Maybe the truth is uncomfortable. Sometimes the most dangerous people aren't purely insane, and they aren't purely rational either. They live somewhere in between. They understand enough to manipulate people, but they're damaged enough to destroy everything around them. That may be the real story of Damian Hardy. Not just a gangster, not just a criminal, but a man whose ego, power, trauma, and possible mental illness merged into something terrifying. A man who became so consumed by control that he lost control of himself. And maybe that's the darkest part of all. Because when a person believes they are bigger than consequences, bigger than law, bigger than reality, the fall is always brutal. So what do you think? Was Damian Hardy truly insane, or did he use insanity as his final hustle? But maybe the most chilling part of Damian Hardy's story isn't the murders, the violence, or even the life sentence. It's what his story represents. World came from an environment where weakness was punished and fear became currency. In neighborhoods where survival often depended on reputation, being feared could feel safer than being loved. Over time, that kind of lifestyle changes a person's mind. You stop seeing people as human beings and start seeing them as threats, assets, or obstacles. And that appears to be exactly what happened to World. Every betrayal made him harder. Every act of violence made him colder. Every victory fed his ego. At first, fear was just a tool. But eventually, fear became his identity. That's when things become dangerous. Because once a man believes his power comes entirely from violence, peace starts to feel like weakness. Respect starts to feel like submission. And love starts to feel like control. World's life is a case study in what happens when power goes unchecked. There was no one around him strong enough to tell him no. And the few people who did say no often paid a heavy price. That kind of unchecked authority creates delusion. A person begins to believe rules no longer apply to them. They begin to think they are untouchable. History has shown us something important. Every kingpin, every dictator, every street legend eventually reaches that point. The point where ego becomes bigger than logic. And when ego beats logic, destruction follows. That may explain why so many people remain fascinated by Damian Hardy. He wasn't just feared because he was violent. He was feared because he operated like a man who truly believed consequences were for other people. Even after arrests, even after prison, even after federal pressure, He still moved like someone who thought he could outthink the system. For a while, maybe he did, but nobody outruns consequences forever. Eventually, the streets collect, the courts collect, or life collects. One way or another, the debt gets paid. And maybe that's the ultimate lesson here. The street life often sells a fantasy of money, respect, power, women, and luxury. On the outside, it can look glamorous, but behind that image is paranoia, betrayal, trauma, and bloodshed. For every flashy story, there's another story about mothers burying sons. For every kingpin that rises, there are dozens of broken lives left behind. That's why stories like Worlds matter. Not because we should glorify them, but because we should understand them. Understanding how someone becomes this dangerous can help people recognize the warning signs before destruction spreads. Was Damian Hardy a criminal mastermind, a mentally ill man, a product of violent surroundings, a manipulator? The truth may never be fully known, but one thing is clear. His name still sparks fear, debate, and fascination years later. And that alone tells you how deep his impact ran. Some men leave behind wealth. Some leave behind a legacy. Some leave behind pain. World left behind all three. And his story remains one of the most disturbing examples of what happens when power, paranoia, violence, and ego collide. The question still remains, was he truly insane, or did he understand exactly what he was doing the entire time? That answer may depend on who you ask. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out the playlist below for more true crime stories.